Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to give you an introduction, really, to the information management system that's been put in place by Compass Informatics on behalf of the National Biodiversity Data Centre, and as Paula said, the Heritage Council and the Department of Arts, Heritage and the Gaeltacht. Biodiversity, just maybe let's start at the basics. Biodiversity, it's basically what we call flora and fauna and the ecosystem services that's provided. It is a vital national resource. It contributes, it's been estimated by the Department of Environment themselves that it contributes 2.8 billion per annum through goods and services to the Irish economy. So it's not an insignificant resource, it is a vital national resource. And like any other national resource, such as agriculture, forestry, water management, you do need an information management system for effective resource management, to document that resource and to manage that resource in part of the state. I had to laugh when Tom was talking in his introduction about GIS and saying it's not just dots on maps. It probably gives you an idea of how far we've had to come. Just the huge task of getting observations as dots on spatial maps is actually state-of-the-art stuff in terms of biodiversity. So it does give you an idea of how far we've had to come, really, in the whole area of biodiversity, applying information communications technology. And I think we've made good progress. We've caught up on our European partners over the last years. And the case for this, the context for this, is there's a lot of national and international policy for which we're required to provide good quality information. And if we don't do it particularly well, we have the EU Habitats Directive, and we have national legislative requirements to manage the resource and make information available. So that's the kind of business case that we have. The data centre established a national biodiversity data set and an internet portal to provide access to those data. We're really about providing a shared service for both the private sector and the public sector, and it's the interface between those two, I think, which probably makes us in quite a different position to other organisations. The service that we provide at the moment is availed of by 9 state bodies. There's a minimum of 17 conservation NGOs or scientific societies, and most of the main academic institutions in Ireland are availing of this. We've also managed to work with most of the national experts on biodiversity. So we are providing a very important national coordinating role. The database that we depend upon, and the foundation for our information management system, is essentially about observations of wildlife in the countryside. And it's based on building a national biodiversity database. At the moment, the digital database, we have just over 2.3 million observations, data points, for in excess of 12,500 species. There are somewhere in the region of about 40,000 species that occur in Ireland. And we've mobilised 90 data sets. These data sets are now sitting on a common platform, and we can interrogate these data. So we've come from a start where stenciling dots on a map was like really kind of state-of-the-art stuff. So applying the whole GIS technologies to provide a portal where people can make information available, but can also access that information too. As I mentioned, the quality of the data is all important, and the quantity of the data as well is important. And underpinning our information management system is the growth of a national biodiversity database. And since the system was established, since we launched the mapping system in mid-2008, the amount of observations in the database has grown. You can see the chart here. It's grown significantly and continues to grow, and we hope to hit about 2.5 million, or even somewhere in the region of over 3 million records early in the new year. So this demonstrates that actually people are using the data and it's in a growth phase. For some of you who aren't familiar with what we do, I just want to give you a small flavour of what it looks like, what the information portal looks like. All of you GIS people will be bored with this kind of thing. I just want to show you so you have a feel. For all of the species that occur in Ireland, the 12,500 species, we can provide a species profile. So you just type in the name of the species you're interested in, and it generates the map of the distribution, the known distribution of the species in Ireland, shown at a 10-kilometre resolution. And I give you some information about the taxonomy of the species and the data set. So this gives you an idea. Marsh fritillary is protected species under Annex 2 of the Habitats Directive, and you can see that we have about 1,400 observations for this species in the database. Like the other systems, the observation points can be displayed on the Ordnance Survey Discovery Series maps, the 1 to 50,000 scale. You can see there's 3 observations of red squirrel for Wicklow shown in this area. The identification tool allows you to query each of the 2.5 million records, and this is an observation of red squirrel from 2007. It's from Roundwood, and it's from the Irish Squirrel Survey, and it gives you the source of the data as well. And again, like all the other systems, well, we have different layers that you can turn on and turn off. This shows you the orthophotographs. The information then gives you more enhanced value. You can see where the observation was, and you can see it's in woodlands. Straight away, you know it's a woodland species, and you can see there's a golf course nearby. And again, there's a number of, like any other GIS system, there's a number of GIS layers that you can switch on and off. We've harvested or brought in some of the ones that are of value. This is the boundary of the SAC in the area. National Parks and Wildlife have provided us with habitat layers for the national surveys that they've done. So this is the native woodland habitat layer that's loaded onto the system. And querying the point now shows you that the record, the squirrel was seen in this location. It occurs within an oak birch holly woodland, and it's within the Glen of the Downs Special Area Conservation. So this kind of gives you a feel for the kind of additional information you can build up, and once you have the raw data, the empirical data feeding into it, it certainly begins to build up a picture of the resource, the biodiversity resource of the country. And someone mentioned, of course, we're not just a terrestrial environment. The sea covers 10 times the amount of the land area, so the system incorporates 2 mapping elements, one based on the lat longs and the other on the Irish National Grid. So this shows you the distribution of the wren, which is a very terrestrial bird, with that of, I think it's the Manx shearwater, which is a very pelagic species. And this doesn't look very impressive, but being able to map the distribution of both terrestrial and marine is actually quite exciting. And as I say to people, I'm very old and cynical and kind of jaded at this stage, but the idea that you can plot the distribution of blue whale and pygmy shrew on the same system, it's kind of exciting, it's kind of cool, you know. A tool, of course, that we've developed, which is one of the main ways in which delivery of conservation can be achieved in Ireland is through the planning process and through spatial queries. So I've just shown that you can activate one of the layers, the special areas of conservation. These are sites that are protected under European law. If you're interested in a particular one, in this case I've highlighted Tramore Dunes and Backstrand, you can generate a report which is an output in a spreadsheet, and it gives you a list of the data. It gives you a list of the species that have been recorded within that site, which are in the database. And you can see here, it shows you the feature, the scientific name, the common name, the number of records, the data was last recorded, the title of the data set from which it comes from, and then the designation on the right-hand side is if it's protected under, you know, EU law, if it's conservation concern, red listed, etc. So this builds up the picture of the resource. This is the front portal. If you don't actually know much about designations, you can say, look, I'm a planner, I'm only interested in the species that are particularly rare in the area. You can decide to just look at which ones are critically endangered, for example. I've highlighted this. There's 20 species on the database which have been classified as critically endangered. These are the list of species. I don't know what they are, but I can click on one just to see their distribution. And you can see that this is a very exceedingly rare species in Ireland, and it's confined to just part of the southern shore of Galway Bay. You can see there's only 5 records of this species, and in terms of people who can make decisions about land management, this is the area where it occurs. It's a very rare one. So decision makers can access this from their desktop, and hopefully the decisions for conservation will be improved consequently. I just want to say, obviously, I wanted to make the point that getting dots on maps is actually critical for us because we had a long way to come. But we're really interested in trying to use the data. It's the use of the data that's absolutely critical, and building to the knowledge base. It can be a bit of a bewildering world there, nature conservation, if you're not all that familiar with it. At every single turn, there's a rare species, or there's a threatened species, or there's a species we need to look after. But there is an international criteria that's used for assessing empirical data and actually coming up objectively with what species are threatened with extinction or which are not. It's a process called the Red List, and these are the 5 Red List species, or 6 Red Lists that have been produced by National Parks and Wildlife up to now. And this gives you a small subset of the rarer species that occur in Ireland and the ones we need to look at. This, for example, is just one of the species that's classified as vulnerable, and you can see on the left-hand side, this is the distribution known prior to 1980, and this is on the right-hand side is post-1980, and experts have assessed these data and they know that this is probably accurate, and you can say this species, for example, is threatened with extinction, we need to look after it. And again, using the data, once you have digital data, we can take it a stage further. This is a piece of work that was done on the freshwater species, and using the species that are classified as under threat with extinction, we looked at their occurrence within spatial occurrence, the records of these species, in relation to the designated sites. Now, there's no reason why these should occur within designated sites, because the designated sites were never drawn up specifically to conserve these. But in terms of a policy to help conservation, we have the designated sites, so we should try to use it. So you can see, for example, some of the species that are critically endangered, 2 records of 1 species all occur within designated sites, others only 30%. So this is using the information in an application sense to inform policy. And it is moving away from the dots, but once you have the digital data, you can start moving forward on that. And another exciting type of analysis that we want to move towards is just looking at the freshwater threatened species, the ones that are very vulnerable. We've overlain the data and tried to come up with, are there key freshwater sites in Ireland that contain a large number of threatened and rare species? And this hasn't been peer reviewed at all, but this is the kind of national overview of biodiversity resource of the country. We come and say, if you're interested in conserving Ireland's biodiversity resources, these are the key sites that we should look at. And we want to continue this analysis for other groups as well. Just finally then, we are interested in providing a service both to the public and the private sector. An awful lot of survey work has been done since like 1700. We now have a resource where that data can be digital, it can be archived, and it can be available for further people to use. We can produce an online atlas of Ireland's biodiversity resource. This is very important and a good way to communicate and raise awareness of what's out there. Provide a tool, obviously, for data providers to visualize their data and to see the sources of data that exists. It's going to help with implementation of the EU directives and other international conventions. For local authorities, it's a resource they can use in terms of tapping into finding out what's known about a certain area in terms of strategic planning, but also in terms of development control. Tom, I think, mentioned about assisting knowledge transfer. It's very important in that regard. And I think Colette will be talking later about an early warning system for invasive species. And we can track changes, how biodiversity resource is changing in the wider countryside. And I just want to find a final comment really to where we move from here. I think we have a data management system at the moment that's fit for purpose. I think it will assist conservation management in the countryside. And we do need to try to move forward to make sure that this system is integrated with the EPA system and other public bodies. But I think one of the main challenges that are out there at the moment is political will to make those changes, and perhaps, let's face it, administrative will to make this. I think we have enough information there at the moment to keep going to help decision making, but we do need the support of politicians and administrators to improve the lot of conservation. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.